Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Muhammad Layek Siddiqui, the father of Holophase. Part 5. The fourfold identity: pattern, claim, certificate, artifact. We began with a reversal that changes everything. Pattern is not decoration added on top of reality. Pattern is what makes anything publicly knowable at all. Before objects, laws, measurements, or observers can be spoken of, there must already be comparable structure. Then we name the primitive root of that comparability, phi. Not a thing, not matter, not energy, not some hidden object, but the primitive permission for distinction itself, the possibility that this can differ from that. Then we gave phi its necessary shape. Primitive comparability cannot be built on a privileged straight line with one sacred zero. It must be circular. That way, no absolute starting point is owned by any observer, instrument, or theory. The structure stays relational. Then we drew the consequence. Because phi is circular, absolute values are not public. What is public are relations, differences, and invariants. What survives lawful transformation. Public knowledge is not built from private coordinates, but from a stable relational structure. Then we installed the anti-smuggling principle. We saw that hidden assumptions, hidden preprocessing, hidden boundaries, hidden baselines, hidden equivalence rules, and hidden interpretations can make noise look structured, hide real variation, and corrupt science. So we said if a choice can materially change the outcome, it must be declared. Then we added type discipline. We learned that not all claims are the same kind of claim. Existence claims are not identity claims. Predictive claims are not interpretive claims. Emergence claims are not persistence claims. Each type needs its own test, its own falsifier, its own uncertainty language. So every public claim must declare its type before it can be evaluated. Now a new question appears. Once we know that patterns exist, that claims must be typed, and that assumptions must be declared, we must ask something even more basic. What exactly are we tracking? When we say this is the same pattern, what is this? When we revise a statement, did the pattern change? When a certificate is withdrawn, did reality change? When new evidence appears, is that a new pattern or just new support? When a graph is redrawn or a file is reformatted, did science itself change? If we do not separate this carefully, the whole framework becomes confused. This is the problem Part 5 solves. It introduces one of the deepest protections in the entire system. Pattern identity, claim identity, certificate identity, and artifact identity must never be collapsed into one another. This is the fourfold identity. It sounds formal, but it is really very simple. And once you see it, you will start seeing this confusion everywhere in science, in law, in politics, in relationships, even in how we think about ourselves. The moment we realize we have been collapsing everything. Imagine a river. The river flows through a valley year after year. Its path bends, its banks erode. Water enters, water leaves. Some parts widen, some parts narrow. Yet we still speak of the same river. Now imagine a map of that river. Then imagine another map made 100 years later. Then imagine a report saying the second map is more accurate than the first. Then imagine the notebooks, sketches, satellite images, and survey measurements used to support the newer map. Now ask a simple question. Which of these is the river? Is the river the map? No. Is the river the report saying the map is accurate? No. Is the river the photographs and GPS files? No. The river is one thing, the map is another, the verdict about the map is another, the supporting materials are yet another. That sounds obvious when put that way. And yet, in science, we constantly collapse these different things together. We treat the statement as if it were the thing. We treat the verdict as if it were the thing. We treat the data file as if it were the thing. We treat a new graph as if it were a new discovery. We treat a retraction as if the world itself changed. We treat a lost notebook as if the pattern vanished from reality. That is identity collapse. And once it happens, science becomes unstable. Formatting differences start looking like discoveries. Procedural changes silently alter conclusions. Audits cannot tell what changed. Repair becomes corruption. Migration between systems becomes history rewriting. And worst of all, the same pattern can no longer be followed through time. So, part 5 begins with a simple insight. Before we can track patterns, we must separate what is being tracked. A simple human analogy: a person, a biography, a judgment, and the records. Let us make this even more ordinary. Think of a person. The person themselves are one thing. A biography written about that person is another thing. A court judgment about that person is another thing. The supporting records, letters, photos, birth certificate, medical files, recordings, are another thing. Now ask, if the biography is revised, did the person become a different person? No. If a court changes its judgment, did the person become a new being? No. If new records are found in an attic, did a new person come into existence? No. If old records are digitized, did the person migrate into a new reality? No. The person is one identity. The biography is another. The judgment is another. The records are another. This is exactly what part 5 says about pattern science. The pattern is like the person. The claim is like the biography. The certificate is like the judgment. The artifacts are like the records. If you collapse them, you lose the ability to think clearly. That is why the fourfold identity is not paperwork. It is reality hygiene. The problem of identity collapse. Now, let us name the problem more carefully. Identity collapse happens when different kinds of sameness are confused. A researcher rewrites a claim more clearly. Someone says, the pattern has changed. A graph is shown in a new format. Someone says, a new structure has been discovered. A certificate is downgraded after reanalysis. Someone says, the pattern was never there. A new artifact file is uploaded. Someone says, this is new science. All of those are confusions. Why? Because they fail to distinguish what changed. Did the pattern itself change? Or did the claim about it change? Or did the verdict on the claim change? Or did the evidence bundle change? If you cannot answer that, then lineage disappears. And once lineage disappears, cumulative science becomes impossible. A mature science must be able to say, same pattern, revised claim. Same claim, changed certificate. Same claim and certificate, expanded artifact set. New claim about the same pattern. Same pattern under a new representation. That grammar is what part 5 installs. 4. The 4 distinct identities. Now, let us define the 4 identities clearly. Pattern identity. Pattern identity is the invariant relational structure under lawful transformation. It tracks the pattern itself, not what we say about it, not whether it is certified, not the files that support our statements, the pattern. If the same melody is played on a piano and a violin, the pattern identity may remain the same. If the same galaxy structure is seen in 2 different images, the pattern identity may remain the same. If the same repeating signal is recorded by different devices, the pattern identity may remain the same. Pattern identity answers the question, what is the structure we are ultimately talking about? Claim identity. Claim identity is a specific assertion about a pattern with declared type, scope, and conditions. It tracks what was asserted. Examples. There is a repeating signal here. These two descriptions refer to the same pattern. This pattern persists under these conditions. This pattern predicts that outcome. No pattern is certifiable under this window. Those are claims. They are not the pattern itself. One pattern can support many claims. A claim can be revised, narrowed, clarified, corrected, or replaced while the pattern remains the same. Claim identity answers the question, what exactly did someone say about the pattern? Certificate identity. Certificate identity is the evaluation outcome applied to a claim. It tracks what was concluded about the claim. Was it certified, refused, downgraded, provisional, superseded, recertified under tighter conditions? The claim and the certificate are not the same thing. The same claim may first be refused, later certified, later downgraded, and later recertified with narrower scope. Certificate identity answers the question, what verdict was issued on the claim? Artifact identity. Artifact identity tracks the supporting materials. Artifacts include raw data, processed files, notebooks, logs, code, graphs, instrument records, scanned documents, photos, recordings, calibration tables, workflow histories. Artifacts matter enormously, but they are not the pattern itself, and they are not the claim, and they are not the certificate. Artifact identity answers the question, what supports the claim and its evaluation? Why these four must never be collapsed? Now we can say the crucial thing directly. A claim is not the pattern. If you forget that, then every new statement looks like a new reality. A certificate is not the claim. If you forget that, then every verdict change looks like the claim itself changed. Artifacts are not the certificate. If you forget that, then adding or losing files looks like changing the official conclusion. And pattern identity may persist across all of these. That is the heart of the fourfold identity. The pattern may remain the same while claims improve, certificates change, artifacts grow, representations change, institutions disagree, tools improve, procedures migrate. This is not a complication added on top of science. This is how science is able to grow without losing itself. A river and a map. Return to the river example because it is so intuitive. The river is the pattern. A map saying the river bends east here and splits here is a claim. An authority saying this map is accurate for navigation is a certificate. The field notes, drone images, GPS measurements, and survey logs are artifacts. Now imagine the map is redrawn in a clearer style. Did the river change? No. Imagine the authority withdraws certification because the map is outdated. Did the river stop existing? No. Imagine new drone images are added. Did the river become a different river? No. Imagine a second cartographer writes a better description. Did a new river appear? No. This is the point. The river is not the map. The map is not the certification. The certification is not the evidence archive. Once you grasp that, part 5 becomes obvious. 7. A recipe and a cake. Now take an even more ordinary example. Imagine a family recipe for chocolate cake. The recipe pattern itself, the structure of ingredients and procedure is one thing. A written card saying, "This is grandmother's cake recipe," is a claim. A cooking expert or family elder saying, "Yes, this is authentic," is a certificate. The handwritten card, old photos, baking videos, ingredient notes, and taste comparisons are artifacts. Now ask, if the card is rewritten clearly, did the recipe pattern change? No. If the expert says, "This version is close but not exact," did the cake cease to exist as a pattern? No. If a new video is found in an old drawer, did a new recipe suddenly come into being? No. Again, the fourfold identity keeps things sane. The recipe is not the card. The card is not the verdict. The verdict is not the supporting evidence. And this ordinary truth is exactly what science must formalize. Why identity collapse destroys science. Now let us state the disasters clearly. Formatting changes become false discoveries. A new visualization, a different graph style, a revised file format, a cleaner table. If artifact identity is confused with pattern identity, these cosmetic changes can be mistaken for discoveries. Procedural changes silently alter conclusions. If a pipeline changes, but the pattern, claim, certificate, and artifacts are not separately tracked, then no one can tell whether reality changed or only procedure changed. Audit lineage becomes impossible. Audits need to know what changed. If identities are collapsed, no one can trace whether it was the claim version, the verdict, the evidence, or the target pattern. Repair becomes corruption. If a corrupted file is restored, is that artifact repair or pattern change? Without separation, recovery can look like rewriting history. Migration becomes dangerous. When claims or data move into new systems, schemas, or formats, identity collapse makes every migration potentially look like a change in science itself. The same pattern cannot be tracked across time. This is the deepest loss. If you cannot separate the pattern from what is said, concluded, and stored about it, then public memory breaks. So, part 5 is really about giving science memory. 9. Lineage requires separation. Suppose there is a pattern X. A first claim is made about it, claim V1. That claim is evaluated, certificate V1. It is supported by artifact set A. Later, the claim is revised for clarity. Claim V2. It still refers to pattern X. A new certificate is issued. Certificate V2. A new artifact bundle supports it. Artifact set B. Now later still, new evidence arrives. The certificate changes again. The claim is narrowed in scope. The artifact set expands. This can only be tracked if the identities are distinct. Otherwise, the history becomes impossible to read. With the fourfold architecture, lineage becomes natural. Pattern X remains the target. Claim B1 and claim B2 are different assertions about pattern X. Certificate B1 and certificate B2 are different verdicts about those claims. Artifact set A and artifact set B are support bundles. That is how public science keeps continuity. 10. This is not administration, it is memory architecture. At first glance, someone might say this sounds like record keeping, but it is more fundamental than that. A civilization can only preserve knowledge if it knows what it is preserving. If it stores only claims and forgets patterns, then later generations confuse language with reality. If it stores only certificates and forgets claims, then verdicts float free from what was actually asserted. If it stores only artifacts and forgets how they relate, then archives become junk piles. The fourfold identity is what prevents that. It is the architecture that lets a science remember what the target pattern was, what was claimed, how it was judged, and what supported that judgment. That is not administration. That is the skeleton of cumulative knowledge. 11. Across all scales of the universe. This distinction appears everywhere. Cosmic scale. A galaxy filament is the pattern. A cosmology paper about it is a claim. A collaboration verdict is a certificate. The telescope images and processing pipeline are artifacts. Biological scale. A recurring gene expression structure is the pattern. A paper describing it is a claim. Replication status is a certificate. Sequence files and analysis scripts are artifacts. Human scale. A stable behavior pattern is the pattern. A therapist's statement about it is a claim. A diagnosis or refusal is a certificate. Notes, recordings, and tests are artifacts. Mathematical scale. An invariant structure is the pattern. A theorem statement is a claim. Formal acceptance or rejection is a certificate. Proof drafts and derivations are artifacts. At every scale, if you confuse these identities, confusion follows. So the fourfold identity is not a niche rule. It is a general law of public understanding. 12. The ID separation gate. Now the framework installs its next gate, ID separation gate. This gate asks, are pattern identity, claim identity, certificate identity, and artifact identity explicitly distinguished where the distinction matters? If not, the pathway is unsafe. This gate becomes essential whenever claims are revised, certificates change, artifacts are added or repaired, multiple teams work on the same pattern, migrations occur, provenance is tracked, audits are performed. If identities are materially collapsed, certification must be refused until separation is restored. Again, refusal is not punishment, it is protection. Firewalls installed by Part 5. This part blocks several dangerous confusions. It blocks certificate equals truth itself. A certificate is a verdict on a claim, not the pattern itself. It blocks artifact equals pattern. A file, graph, image, notebook, or spreadsheet is not the target pattern. It blocks claim revision equals pattern changed. New wording is not automatically new reality. It blocks new formatting equals new science. A cleaner presentation is not a discovery. It blocks artifact repair equals pattern replacement. Recovering a corrupted file does not create a new pattern. These firewalls are what keep public science from confusing bureaucracy with ontology. Why this part is placed here? Part 5 is not placed here by accident. It comes right after claim typing because once claims become explicit, we immediately need to know what they are related to. Part 6 will talk about windows and finite access. But windows are part of claims, supported by artifacts and evaluated by certificates. Part 7 will talk about difference as a pattern property. But saying difference exists is already a claim about a pattern. Part 8 will introduce lifts and carriers. Those are reading tools, not the pattern itself. Later, provenance, replayability, auditability, versioning, publicness, and institutional knowledge all presuppose the fourfold distinction. So part 5 is foundational because every later expansion depends on it. Before we can speak of accessing patterns, we must know what counts as the target, the statement, the verdict, and the support. 15. Final principle. Now we can state the principle in its clearest form. Pattern identity, claim identity, certificate identity, and artifact identity must be explicitly separated and tracked. No identity collapse is lawful. Pattern identity tracks the structure itself. Claim identity tracks what was asserted. Certificate identity tracks what was concluded. Artifact identity tracks what supports the process. This is the fourfold identity, and without it, the whole science loses continuity. Now, a new question appears. Once we know what is being tracked, we must ask, where is it being accessed? No pattern claim comes from nowhere. Every claim comes through finite access: a window, a location, a duration, a resolution, an instrument, a declared support region. So the next part must explain what a window is, why all access is finite, and how windows shape what becomes publicly legible. That brings us to part 6, windows and finite access. Because once we know what we are tracking, we must know from where and under what limits we are seeing it. Always, peace be upon you.